Gabriel came home to a suffocatingly quiet house, a perfectly made bed, and a single, sleek, silver USB drive resting dead center on the marble kitchen island. Just 12 hours earlier, his 7 months pregnant wife, Maya, had stood in the doorway of their own bedroom and caught him tangled in the sheets with his junior partner. But Maya didn't scream. She didn't shatter the expensive wedding china. She simply vanished into the rainy Boston night, taking their unborn child with her. When Gabriel plugged that drive into his laptop, bracing himself for tearful divorce demands, he didn't find a goodbye. He unlocked a terrifying, meticulously documented conspiracy that would force him to fight for his freedom, his life, and a family he didn't realize he had already lost. The rain was coming down in sheets across the Boston harbor, slicking the cobblestone streets of Beacon Hill into dark, reflective mirrors. Maya Pendleton sat in the back of her Uber, a hand resting instinctively on the pronounced swell of her stomach. At 7 months pregnant, she felt a constant, dull ache in her lower back. But tonight, the discomfort was overshadowed by a quiet, buzzing excitement. She was coming home a day early from her sister's baby shower in Providence. She had texted Gabriel, her husband of 4 years, but the messages had sat unread since 4 p.m. She assumed he had fallen asleep. His hours as a senior acquisitions analyst at Grayson & Cole were notoriously brutal. Maya thanked the driver, tipped him generously, and carefully navigated the wet brownstone steps. Her skin, a deep, flawless mahogany, was illuminated by the flickering gas lamp beside their front door. She fumbled for her keys, her mind already picturing Gabriel's surprised, sleepy smile, the way his pale, sleep-tousled face would light up when he realized she was back. She turned the deadbolt with a soft click and pushed the heavy oak door open. The first thing that hit her wasn't a sound, but a smell. It wasn't the sharp scent of Gabriel's cedarwood cologne, nor was it the comforting aroma of the chamomile tea he usually brewed before bed. It was a heavy, musky floral. Le Labo Santal 33. It hung in the entryway air like a toxic fog. Maya's breath hitched. She lowered her overnight bag to the hardwood floor, making no sound. The house was dimly lit, the only illumination coming from the streetlights filtering through the plantation shutters. As she walked past the living room, she noticed a trench coat draped haphazardly over the back of their expensive mid-century sofa. A woman's coat. Beneath it, on the Persian rug, lay a pair of sharp, black stilettos. The silence of the house suddenly felt heavy, predatory. Her heart began to hammer against her ribs, a frantic, desperate rhythm. The baby gave a sharp kick against her ribs, as if sensing the sudden spike in her adrenaline. Maya placed a trembling hand on the banister and began to climb the stairs to the second floor. Each step felt like walking through wet cement. Her mind raced, desperately trying to construct innocent explanations. A late-night meeting. A co-worker dropped off some files and got caught in the rain. But the stilettos mocked her rationalizations. She reached the landing. The door to their master bedroom was ajar. A sliver of warm, amber light spilled out onto the hallway floor. Maya approached the door, her breath shallow. She pressed her hand flat against the cool wood and pushed it open just an inch wider. The world stopped spinning. The air left her lungs in a silent, agonizing rush. There, in the bed they had picked out together, in the room they had painted just last month, was Gabriel. His fair skin stood out starkly against the charcoal-grey sheets, and draped across his chest, her blonde hair spilling over his shoulder, was Chloe Carmichael. Chloe, the ambitious 26-year-old junior partner Gabriel had spent the last 6 months mentoring. Chloe, who had sat at Maya's dining table a month ago, drinking their wine and complimenting the nursery. Maya didn't gasp. She didn't cry out. A bizarre, icy calm descended upon her. It was a survival mechanism, a sudden severing of her emotional nerve endings. She stood there for a full minute, watching the rhythmic rise and fall of their breathing. She catalogued the scene with the cold precision of an art curator examining a forgery. She saw Gabriel's hand resting on Chloe's bare hip. She saw the empty bottle of expensive Bordeaux on the nightstand. She took a slow, deliberate step backward, then another. She pulled the door shut, leaving it exactly as she had found it. She walked down the hall to her home office, a small room overlooking the alley. She turned on the desk lamp, its pool of light isolating her in the darkness. She sat down in her leather chair, opened her MacBook, and stared at the screen. The tears finally came, hot and blinding, but she wiped them away with a fierce, angry swipe of her hand. Crying was a luxury for later. Right now she needed to think. Maya was not a woman who threw things or screamed in the streets. She was a woman of strategy. Before she had opened her successful art gallery in the South End, she had been a forensic accountant. She knew how to look beneath the surface. For weeks, she had noticed small changes in Gabriel. His guarded phone, the sudden emergency meetings, his defensive posture when she asked simple questions. She had chalked it up to work stress and impending fatherhood. But 2 weeks ago, driven by a nagging intuition she couldn't silence, she had mirrored his laptop's hard drive to her own external server during one of his showers. She hadn't looked at the files. She had felt too guilty, too paranoid. Now she pulled up the mirrored drive. She bypassed his personal folders, his text logs. She went straight to his secure work partition. If Chloe was in his bed, the lines between his personal and professional life were gone. For the next 4 hours, as the rain battered the window pane and her husband slept with another woman down the hall, Maya dug. And what she found was a betrayal far deeper and far more dangerous than infidelity. By 5 a.m., the sky outside was bruised purple. Maya had finished. She packed 2 large suitcases with only the essentials. She left her wedding ring on the bathroom counter, right next to Gabriel's toothbrush. Finally, she walked into the kitchen. She took a brand-new, silver-encrypted USB drive out of her purse. She transferred a specific set of files onto it, along with a single video file she had just recorded in the dim light of her office. She placed the drive dead center on the kitchen island. Without looking back, Maya Pendleton walked out the front door, pulling it shut with a quiet, definitive click. Gabriel woke up to the sound of a garbage truck grinding down the alleyway. His head throbbed with a vicious, wine-soaked ache. He groaned, rolling over, reaching out a hand. It met empty space. He cracked an eye open. The bedroom was empty. The grey sheets were tangled, carrying the faint, lingering scent of Santal 33. Panic flared in his chest for a fraction of a second before memory washed over him. Chloe. She must have slipped out early to avoid the morning traffic. He rubbed his face, a wave of profound self-disgust washing over him. He hadn't meant for it to happen here, in his bed. It was a crossing of a line he had sworn to himself he'd maintain. He sat up, the room spinning slightly. Maya wasn't due back until tomorrow afternoon. He had time to change the sheets, air out the house, erase the evidence of his monumental lapse in judgment. He convinced himself it meant nothing. Chloe was just a release valve for the immense pressure he was under at Grayson and Cole. Gabriel stumbled into the master bathroom and turned on the shower. As he reached for his toothbrush, his hand froze. Sitting perfectly centered on the marble countertop, catching the morning light, was a diamond ring. Her ring. The custom-set platinum band with the 2-carat radiant-cut diamond he had saved for 3 years to buy. The air in the bathroom instantly grew thin. "Maya!" Gabriel choked out. his voice hoarse. He sprinted out of the bathroom, practically falling down the stairs. "Maya!" The house threw his voice back at him, hollow and mocking. He checked the living room. Empty. The dining room. Empty. The coat closet was missing her favorite wool trench coat. Her everyday boots were gone from the mudroom. He stumbled into the kitchen, his heart hammering a frantic, terrifying beat against his sternum. That was when he saw it. Sitting on the pristine white quartz of the kitchen island was a silver USB drive. Underneath it was a single sheet of heavy stock paper. It wasn't a letter. It was a printout of an ultrasound picture. Their son. In thick black marker across the bottom of the image, Maya had written a single word. "Look." Gabriel's hands shook uncontrollably as he grabbed the USB drive. His mind raced through 100 terrifying scenarios. She came home early. She saw. She knew. He practically lunged for his briefcase, pulling out his work laptop. He slammed it onto the dining table, his fingers clumsy as he forced the USB into the port. A window popped up immediately. The drive was titled simply Eclipse. There were dozens of folders, all locked with complex encryption protocols he recognized from his firm's IT department. But sitting outside the folders was one unlocked file, a video file titled play_me_Gabriel.mp4. He double-clicked it. The screen went black for a second, then flared to life. Maya was sitting in her office chair. The lighting was harsh, illuminating the exhaustion under her dark eyes, but her posture was rigid, her face an unreadable mask of absolute composure. She was wearing her black turtleneck, her hair pulled back into a tight bun. "Hello, Gabriel," her voice came through the speakers. It wasn't angry, it wasn't shaking. It was chillingly calm, like a judge reading a sentence. "By the time you watch this, I will be gone. Do not look for me. Do not call my sister. Do not call my mother. If you try to track my phone or my credit cards, you will find they have been deactivated and left in a dumpster behind a diner in Cambridge." Gabriel pressed his knuckles against his mouth, a sick feeling rising in his stomach. "I came home early tonight," Maya on the screen continued, her dark eyes staring directly into the camera lens, piercing right through him. "I walked upstairs to our bedroom. I saw you. I saw Chloe." Gabriel let out a ragged sob, his shoulders collapsing. "God, Maya, no," he whispered to the empty room. "I thought about waking you up," Maya said, her voice dropping a fraction of an octave. "I thought about screaming. I thought about taking that heavy bronze statue from the hallway and putting it through the windshield of your Audi. But then I realized something, Gabriel. Anger is a fleeting emotion, and you are not worth my anger. You are certainly not worth the stress it would cause our son." She leaned forward slightly, filling the screen. "You think you're a player, Gabriel. You think you're navigating this high-stakes corporate world, having your little affair with the ambitious blonde, keeping your pregnant black wife comfortably ignorant at home in the beautiful house." A cold smile, devoid of any joy, touched the corners of her mouth. "But you are not a player, Gabriel. You are a pawn, and you are currently standing on the tracks, blindfolded, while a freight train bears down on you." Gabriel frowned, the guilt momentarily fractured by profound confusion. "A train?" "When I realized what you were doing," Maya continued, "I did what I do best. I audited you. I mirrored your laptop 2 weeks ago. I wasn't looking for love letters to Chloe. I just wanted to know why you were lying to me. But I found something else. I found out why Chloe is actually sleeping with you." Maya reached out a hand off-screen. A moment later, the video feed shrank to the corner of his screen, and a cascade of documents rapidly opened on his desktop. They were spreadsheets, wire transfer logs, and internal memos from Grayson and Cole. "Open folder A," Myers' voice instructed over the speakers. Gabriel, moving like a man in a trance, double-clicked the folder. "Look at the Cayman Island shell accounts, Gabriel," Myers said. "Look at the authorization signatures." Gabriel scanned the documents. His breath caught. There were transfers, millions of dollars moving from their client escrow accounts into an offshore entity called Apex Holdings. And at the bottom of every single transfer request was an authorization signature. His signature. "I didn't sign these," Gabriel gasped, leaning closer to the screen. "I never saw these." "I know you didn't," Myers' voice replied, anticipating his reaction. "But the digital footprint says you did. The IP logs show these transfers were authorized from your terminal using your encrypted login credentials. Credentials that someone would need physical access to your machine to acquire. Someone who, perhaps, spends a lot of time alone with you. Someone who knows you leave your laptop unlocked when you go to pour a drink after sex." The blood drained from Gabriel's face. "Chloe isn't in love with you, Gabriel," Myers stated, delivering the killing blow with surgical precision. "Chloe is framing you. She and the senior partners are bleeding the firm dry, and they have spent the last 6 months meticulously building a paper trail that leads directly to your desk. You are the fall guy. When the SEC kicks down the doors of Grayson and Cole next week, and they will, because I anonymously forwarded a heavily encrypted dossier to the regional director 3 hours ago, you will be the only one holding the bag." Gabriel pushed his chair back, knocking it over. He paced the room, his hands tearing at his hair. He was hyperventilating. It was impossible. Chloe was sweet. Chloe looked at him like he was a god. He rushed back to the laptop. "In the remaining folders on this drive," Maya said, her face returning to full screen, "is the proof. The real IP logs. The hidden emails Chloe thought she deleted, showing her communicating with the offshore brokers. I untangled the web for you, Gabriel. I proved your innocence." Gabriel let out a shuddering breath of relief. She had saved him. Even after what he did, she had saved him. "But," Maya said, her eyes narrowing, "you don't get that proof for free." The screen went black. A single timer appeared in the center. 72 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. The timer immediately ticked down to 71 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds. "This drive is programmed to wipe itself in exactly 72 hours, Maya's voice echoed from the black screen, "unless you input a 32-character alphanumeric passcode. If the drive wipes, you go to federal prison for the next 20 years. Your life is over." Gabriel stared at the ticking numbers, pure, unadulterated terror gripping his throat. "I have the passcode, Gabriel," Maya said, "and I want something in exchange." The silence in the dining room was absolute, broken only by the frantic, shallow breaths Gabriel took as he stared at the red digits ticking away his future. 71:59:45. He slammed his fist against the table, rattling the laptop. "Maya, please! You can't do this!" he shouted at the screen, a desperate plea to a woman who was already hundreds of miles away. The video feed flickered back to life, replacing the timer. Maya was leaning back in her chair now, her arms crossed. "You're probably panicking right now," she said. "You're probably thinking about calling the police. Go ahead. Tell them your pregnant wife ran away with the evidence that clears you of a multi-million-dollar federal embezzlement charge. See how quickly they arrest you instead." She was right. The moment he brought this to the authorities without the exonerating proof, he would be placed in handcuffs. The paper trail Chloe had built was damning. He remembered the times Chloe had offered to finish up the paperwork while he went to grab lunch. The times she had stayed late in his office, ostensibly organizing his files while he was in partner meetings. He had been so blinded by his own ego, so flattered by the attention of a younger, beautiful woman, that he had handed her the keys to his own destruction. "Here are my terms, Gabriel," Maya said, her tone shifting to strict business. "I want a clean break, but I refuse to be tied up in litigation for years while you rot in federal prison, freezing my assets because we are married." She held up a thick manila envelope. "Inside the bottom drawer of my desk, you will find a folder. It contains fully drafted divorce papers. They grant me sole physical and legal custody of our child. You will waive all parental rights. You will surrender your equity in this house to me. You will sign over the joint investment accounts entirely to my name." Gabriel felt like he was being punched repeatedly in the stomach. "Maya, I love you. I made a mistake, please," he begged the glowing screen. "If you fight me on a single clause," Maya continued relentlessly, "if you try to contact me, if you hire an investigator to find me, I will let the timer run out. I will let you burn. You traded your family for a night in our bed with the woman who was trying to destroy you. Now you will pay the price." She paused, taking a slow breath. For a fraction of a second, the iron facade cracked. A glimmer of profound, agonizing heartbreak flashed in her dark eyes. "I loved you, Gabriel. I believed in the life we were building. But you looked at me, carrying your child, and decided I wasn't enough. You made your choice. Now make this one." The screen cut to black again. A text box appeared below the ticking timer, waiting for the 32-character passcode. 715512. Gabriel ran out of the room, tearing down the hall to Maya's office. He ripped open the bottom drawer of her heavy mahogany desk. There it was, the thick manila envelope. He tore it open, pulling out the legal documents. It was airtight, drafted by one of the most ruthless family law attorneys in Boston. It stripped him of everything: his home, his savings, his child. He slumped against the wall, sliding down until he hit the floor, the papers scattering around him. He buried his face in his hands and finally wept. He wept for the marriage he had destroyed, for the son he would never hold, and for the absolute, staggering stupidity of his own hubris. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. It was a text from Chloe. "Morning, handsome. Last night was amazing. See you at the office. We have that big Apex Holdings review at 10 a.m. Also, a wave of revulsion so intense it made him physically gag washed over him. He stared at her name on the screen. She was going to walk into that boardroom today, sit beside him, and smile, knowing she was setting the final trap to send him to prison. A new, dark energy began to replace the despair in Gabriel's chest. Maya had checkmated him. Yes, she was going to take everything. But she had also given him a weapon. She had shown him the monster hiding in his bed. He stood up, wiping his face. He walked back to the laptop. The timer was merciless. 71 hours, 48 minutes and 30 seconds. He didn't have the passcode. He couldn't get the proof without signing his life away to Maya. But Maya hadn't said when she would give him the code, just that he had to sign. He looked at the open folders on his desktop, the ones Maya had left unlocked, the teaser, the breadcrumbs. It wasn't the full IP logs, but it was enough to see the shape of the ghost. He saw the dates of the transfers. He cross-referenced them in his mind. November 12th. He had been in New York for a conference. Chloe had stayed in Boston. December 4th. He had been at his mother's funeral. Chloe had covered his desk. Anger, hot and blinding, flared in his veins. He grabbed a pen from the counter and signed the divorce papers. Every single page. He signed away his house, he signed away his money, he signed away his son. He placed the papers back in the envelope. He opened a secure messaging app on his phone, the one he knew Maya used for her high-end art clients. He typed a single message. The papers are signed and notarized. I am leaving them on the kitchen island. I surrender. Give me the code. He hit send. He didn't know if she would read it. He didn't know if she was even looking at that account. He went upstairs, took a freezing cold shower, and put on his best bespoke charcoal suit. He tied a Windsor knot with perfectly steady hands. He strapped his Rolex to his wrist. He looked at his pale, drawn face in the mirror. He looked like a dead man walking. But as Gabriel walked out of the townhouse and into the grey Boston morning, hailing a cab to the financial district, he realized something. Maya had left him with nothing to lose. And a man with nothing to lose, armed with half a truth, was a very dangerous thing. He was going to the office. He was going to sit next to Chloe Carmichael, and he was going to spend the next 71 hours finding out exactly how deep the rot at Grayson and Cole went before the timer ran out. The elevator doors to the 42nd floor of Grayson and Cole slid open with a soft, expensive chime. Gabriel stepped out into the sprawling reception area, the polished Italian marble floor reflecting the panoramic view of the Boston skyline. For 4 years, arriving at this office had filled him with a surge of adrenaline and pride. Today, the sterile, climate-controlled air felt like the interior of a tomb. "Good morning, Mr. Pendleton," the receptionist, a young woman named Sarah, said with a bright smile. "Morning, Sarah," Gabriel replied, his voice terrifyingly steady. He walked down the glass-walled corridor toward his corner office. He felt hyper-aware of everything. The hushed conversations by the water cooler, the blinking lights on the server routers down the hall. As he turned the corner, he saw her. Chloe Carmichael was leaning against the doorframe of his office, holding 2 steaming cups of macchiato. She was wearing a tailored navy pencil skirt and a crisp white silk blouse. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a sleek, professional ponytail. She looked like the quintessential rising star of the financial district. Then, the scent hit him. Santal 33. Gabriel's stomach violently rolled, a surge of pure bile rising in his throat. He forced himself to swallow it down, plastering a neutral, tired expression onto his face. "Hey," Chloe murmured, her voice dropping an octave as he approached. She handed him a cup, her fingers brushing against his. "You snuck out on me. I woke up alone." She was so good. If he hadn't spent the last 6 hours staring at the digital blueprint of his own crucifixion, he would have believed the pout on her lips was genuine affection. Maya called, Gabriel lied, sliding past her into his office and placing his briefcase on the desk. Her sister went into early labor, false alarm, but she was frantic. I had to go home and deal with the fallout over the phone. Chloe's expression shifted instantly into a mask of perfect, empathetic concern. "Oh my God, is the baby okay? Is Maya okay?" The audacity of the question almost made Gabriel snap her neck right there. She was asking about the woman whose bed she had defiled, whose husband she was trying to send to federal prison. "She's fine," Gabriel said, taking a sip of the burning coffee. "Just stressed. I didn't sleep much." "Well, drink up," Chloe smiled, tapping her manicured nail against his desk. "Adrian wants us in the main boardroom in 10 minutes for the Apex Holdings review. The quarterly audit is coming up, and he wants all the escrow files buttoned up." Buttoned up, meaning making sure Gabriel's forged digital fingerprints were perfectly visible for the auditors. "I'll be right there," Gabriel said. Once she left, Gabriel locked his office door. He pulled out his personal phone and checked his secure messaging app. The message he had sent Maya hours ago read, "Delivered." It didn't read, Read. 69. 42:15. The timer in his head was a physical pressure behind his eyes. He grabbed a blank notepad, a Montblanc pen, and walked down the hall to the boardroom. The room was already buzzing. Adrian Cole, the senior managing partner, sat at the head of the long mahogany table. Adrian was a silver-haired titan of Boston finance, a man who played golf with senators and owned a yacht moored in Nantucket. Beside him was David Harrison, the head of compliance. "Gabriel, my boy, have a seat," Adrian boomed, gesturing to the empty leather chair to his right. Chloe was seated directly across from it, her laptop open. "Let's get right into it," David Harrison said, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Apex Holdings. We've moved roughly $42 million from the dormant client escrow accounts into the Apex offshore vehicles over the last 2 quarters. Gabriel, your authorization logs look solid, but we need to ensure the metadata aligns with the physical transfer dates." Gabriel looked at David, then he looked at Adrian. The realization hit him like a physical blow to the chest. It wasn't just Chloe. Maya's files had shown Chloe initiating the transfers, but David Harrison, the head of compliance, had to be signing off on the red flags, and Adrian Cole had to be directing the traffic. Chloe wasn't the mastermind. She was the mule, and Gabriel was the sacrificial lamb they had all agreed upon. "The metadata is airtight, David," Gabriel said smoothly, leaning back in his chair. "I personally reviewed the IP logs last week. Everything traces back to my secure terminal. If the SEC comes knocking, the paper trail begins and ends with me." The room went dead silent for a fraction of a second. Chloe's fingers stopped typing. Adrian's smile faltered, just slightly around the edges. It was a micro-expression, but Gabriel caught it. They weren't used to him being this proactive about the audit trail. "Excellent," Adrian recovered smoothly, clearing his throat. "That's exactly the kind of diligence that makes you a senior partner in waiting, Gabriel. Chloe, make sure those physical files are on Gabriel's desk by noon." "Of course, Adrian," Chloe said, her eyes darting to Gabriel. The meeting ended 20 minutes later. As everyone filed out, Gabriel intentionally knocked his heavy elbow into Chloe's elbow, sending her steaming latte crashing down the front of her pristine white silk blouse. "Oh my God! Gabriel!" Chloe shrieked, jumping back as the brown liquid stained her clothes. "Chloe, I am so sorry," Gabriel gasped, grabbing a stack of napkins and thrusting them at her. "I tripped on the rug. I'm so sorry. Go to the executive washroom. I'll have Sarah send down for a dry cleaner." It's fine," she hissed, clearly furious, but trying to maintain her composure in front of the partners. She left her laptop open on the table and bolted for the door. Gabriel had maybe 3 minutes. He lunged across the table and pulled a small, black USB drive from his pocket, a localized data extractor he had bought from a spy shop in Cambridge 2 years ago for a corporate espionage case the firm had handled. He jammed it into Chloe's USB port. He bypassed her firm network folders. Maya had already mapped those. He went straight for her local hard drive, targeting her secure messaging caches, her hidden desktop folders, and her personal email drafts. The progress bar crawled. 20%, 45%, 70%. He heard the click of heels coming swiftly down the hallway. 85%, 95%, 100%. Gabriel ripped the drive out, slipped it into his jacket pocket, and was back in his own chair, calmly reading a prospectus, right as Chloe stormed back into the room, holding a wad of wet paper towels against her chest. "I have to go home and change," she snapped, the sweet junior partner facade cracking slightly. "Take your time," Gabriel said softly, his hand resting on the stolen data in his pocket. "I'll hold down the fort." Gabriel locked his office door, pulled the blinds shut, and plugged the black extractor drive into his personal, untraceable tablet. 67:15, he had lost 5 hours. Maya still hadn't responded. He opened the decrypted cache from Chloe's computer. What he found made his blood run cold, not with fear, but with absolute disgust. Chloe wasn't just a greedy junior partner. In a hidden folder disguised as an old law school syllabus, Gabriel found a scanned copy of a private contract. It was a predatory loan agreement. 3 years ago, Chloe's father had embezzled $2 million from a mob-connected union pension fund in Chicago. To save her father's life, Chloe had turned to Adrian Cole, a family friend. Cole had paid off the debt. In exchange, he effectively owned Chloe. The contract explicitly outlined her duties at Grayson & Cole, which included acting as a digital courier for the Apex Holdings scheme, and most sickeningly, getting close to Gabriel Pendleton to acquire his biometric and digital passcodes. There were emails from Cole to Chloe's personal Proton Mail account. Date: October 14th. From RS to CC. He's arrogant and his wife is pregnant. He's ripe for a distraction. Get him into bed by the Christmas party. I need his terminal access by Q1. Gabriel stared at the screen, a hollow ringing echoing in his ears. Every touch, every late-night conversation, every breathless whisper in his ear. It was a transaction. He hadn't been seduced. He had been hunted. He had thrown away a brilliant, fiercely loyal wife who loved him for a woman who was clocking in for a shift to pay off her father's gambling debts. His phone buzzed on the desk. Gabriel practically scrambled across the mahogany to grab it. It was a notification from the secure messaging app. Maya, I have the signed divorce papers. Your lawyer will receive them Monday. The house changes locks tomorrow. Gabriel typed frantically, his thumbs slipping on the glass. Gabriel, I signed them. I gave you everything. Give me the 32-character code, please. 3 agonizing minutes passed. Maya, you are still thinking like a victim, Gabriel. You think proving your innocence to the SEC will save you? Adrian Cole has a team of 30 lawyers. If you just hand over the IP logs, he will crush you in court. He will claim you faked the logs to frame Chloe. It will be tied up for a decade, and you'll go bankrupt defending yourself. Gabriel stopped typing. She was right. Cole was too powerful. He needed a kill shot. Gabriel, what do you want me to do? Maya, the Apex Holdings accounts, the offshore vehicles in the Caymans. I spent a week digging through the firm's firewalls before I left. I found the master routing number for Apex, but I couldn't get the authorization token. It requires a hard key fob, a physical RSA token. Gabriel looked up, staring at the wall. The physical tokens. Only the senior managing partners had them. Adrian Cole kept his on a platinum chain attached to his belt loop. Maya, get me the 6-digit RSA code generated by Cole's fob. Once I have it, I can access the Apex accounts. I will initiate a wire transfer of all $42 million directly to an anonymous, decentralized crypto ledger I established in Malta. I will drain Adrian Cole's stolen empire to zero. When the SEC arrives, the money will be gone, and Cole will be the only one with the clearance to have moved it. Gabriel felt a cold sweat break out on the back of his neck. Maya wasn't just clearing his name. She was robbing Adrian Cole blind. She was taking the embezzled $42 million as her own personal severance package, and she was forcing Gabriel to be the getaway driver. Gabriel, that's grand larceny, Maya. If I help you steal that money, I'm actually committing the crime they framed me for. The response came almost instantly. Maya, 66 hours and 42 minutes, Gabriel. The timer doesn't stop for moral dilemmas. If that drive wipes, you do 20 years for stealing the money anyway. Might as well actually steal it. Get me the token code. Maya had backed him into a corner with surgical precision. To save himself from being framed as a thief, he had to become a thief. He had to rob the most powerful, dangerous man in the firm. Gabriel looked at his reflection in the dark screen of his tablet. The arrogant, untouchable golden boy of Grayson and Cole was dead. He was a ghost haunting his own office, a pawn trapped between a ruthless corporate syndicate and a wife whose brilliance terrified him. He stood up, adjusting his tie. It was 1:15 p.m. Adrian Cole usually went to the private steam room at his athletic club 3 blocks away at 2 p.m. every Thursday. He always took his gym bag, and he always left his clothes and his belt with the RSA token in the VIP locker. Gabriel walked out of his office, his face a mask of stone. He had 66 hours to pull off a $42 million heist, or he would die in a federal cage. The heavy oak doors of the Commonwealth Athletic Club in Back Bay swung shut behind Gabriel, muting the sounds of the Boston traffic. It was 2:15 p.m. He flashed his platinum membership card at the front desk, his heart hammering a frantic, erratic rhythm against his ribs. He bypassed the squash courts and the mahogany-paneled juice bar, heading straight down the carpeted stairs to the subterranean executive locker room. The air down here was thick with eucalyptus and the low hum of expensive ventilation systems. Gabriel walked past the rows of polished cherry-wood lockers until he reached the VIP section. Locker 42. Adrian Cole's personal locker. Gabriel knew Cole's routine like clockwork. Every Thursday, Cole did a 20-minute steam, followed by a cold plunge and a massage. He would be incapacitated until at least 3 p.m., but getting into the locker was the real hurdle. These weren't standard combination locks. They were biometric keypad hybrids. However, Gabriel also knew exactly how arrogant Adrian Cole was. 3 months ago, Gabriel had been standing next to Cole while the older man complained about the biometric scanner failing due to the steam room humidity. Cole had punched in his manual override code right in front of Gabriel, scoffing about useless modern tech. It was his yacht's registration number. Gabriel stood in front of locker 42, glancing nervously over his shoulder. The locker room was empty, the quiet broken only by the distant hiss of the steam room showers. He pulled his burner phone from his pocket, opened the secure messaging app, and initiated an encrypted audio call to Maya. It rang once, twice, 3 times. "I'm here." Maya's voice crackled through the earpiece, cold and efficient. "Do you have the token?" "I'm opening the locker now," Gabriel whispered, his hands trembling as he reached for the keypad. He punched in the 4 digits, 7284. A soft electronic beep echoed, and the heavy cherry-wood door popped open. Inside hung Cole's bespoke Brioni suit, perfectly pressed. Resting on the bottom shelf was his crocodile leather briefcase, and draped over the hanging rod, still threaded through his suit trousers, was a thick leather belt. Attached to the belt loop by a small reinforced steel chain was the RSA Secure ID fob. Gabriel grabbed the fob. It was a small, heavy plastic rectangle with an LCD screen displaying 6 digits. Above the screen was a tiny progress bar that depleted every 60 seconds before generating a new code. "I have it," Gabriel breathed. "Read the numbers," Maya commanded. "The transfer protocols are preloaded. I just need the authorization handshake." Gabriel looked at the screen. The tiny progress bar was almost empty. "Wait, it's about to cycle. Give it 5 seconds," Gabriel said, his eyes darting toward the locker room entrance. He heard the heavy thud of footsteps on the stairs. Someone was coming down. "Gabriel, the Cayman banks close their routing windows in exactly 4 minutes. If we miss this, the money stays locked until Monday, and your timer runs out." Maya's voice tightened with urgency. The LCD screen flashed blank, then populated with a new sequence. "Ready," Gabriel whispered, pressing himself against the locker door as the footsteps grew louder. 8, 2, 4, 9, 1, 7. 8, 2, 4, 9, 1, 7, Maya repeated, the rapid clicking of her mechanical keyboard echoing through the phone. "Handshake accepted. Initiating transfer of $42,300,000 to the decentralized Malta ledger." "Hey, Pendleton!" A booming voice echoed through the locker room. Gabriel nearly dropped the fob. He shoved the belt back into the locker and slammed the heavy wooden door shut, just as David Harrison, the head of compliance, rounded the corner holding a gym towel. "David!" Gabriel choked out, forcing a smile that felt like shattered glass on his face. "Didn't expect to see you down here." Harrison wiped sweat from his forehead, looking Gabriel up and down. "Taking a late lunch? You look like you've seen a ghost, Gabriel. Everything all right with the Apex files?" "Just fine," Gabriel lied smoothly, slipping his phone into his pocket. Maya had hung up. "Just needed to clear my head. Stressful day." "Well, button it up," Harrison warned, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Cole wants a flawless report by tomorrow morning." Gabriel nodded, walking past Harrison toward the stairs. His legs felt like lead. He had done it. He had handed Maya the keys to the kingdom. Now, the waiting began. 48 hours. By Monday morning, the atmosphere on the 42nd floor of Grayson and Cole was chemically toxic. The usual hum of high-stakes trading had been replaced by a jagged, terrified silence. Gabriel sat at his desk, his eyes bloodshot, fixed on the laptop screen where the countdown timer mocked his very existence. 0 hours, 15 minutes, 30 seconds, 15 minutes. In a quarter of an hour, the silver USB drive, the only shield between him and a 20-year sentence in a federal penitentiary, would execute a military-grade wipe command. He had spent the last 48 hours in a state of oscillating mania, sending message after message to Maya's secure line. "I did it. I gave you the code. I signed the papers. Please, Maya, for the sake of our son, don't let me drown." The responses were non-existent. The delivered icons remained grey, never turning to read. He was a ghost screaming into a void of his own making. Through the glass walls of his office, Gabriel watched the Shark Tank. Chloe Carmichael was pacing near the mahogany coffee station, her movements frantic and bird-like. She was no longer the poised, seductive junior partner. She looked like a woman who had realized the floorboards were rotting beneath her feet. Adrian Cole had not emerged from his corner suite since 8 a.m. Rumors swirled that the firm's offshore brokers in Grand Cayman had gone dark after a massive, unauthorized drain of the Apex accounts. The $42 million was gone, and the digital logs, the ones Adrian himself had secured, now showed his own biometric signature as the primary authorizer. 0 hours, 10 minutes, 0 seconds, Gabriel buried his face in his cold, trembling hands. He realized then the full depth of Maya's genius. She hadn't just caught him in bed with another woman. She had diagnosed the entire rot of his life. She knew he was a pawn. She knew he was disposable to men like Cole. By forcing Gabriel to help her steal the money, she had ensured that even if he survived the legal fallout, he would be forever tied to her silence. She owned him, body and soul, from across an ocean he couldn't cross. Suddenly, the heavy, tempered glass doors of the main reception area were not just opened. They were breached. 12 agents in dark navy windbreakers with SEC Enforcement Division emblazoned in yellow across the back swarmed the floor. Behind them were 4 FBI field agents, their faces grim and professional. The office exploded into a cacophony of shouting. "Nobody move! Hands away from the keyboards! Step back from your terminals now!" the lead agent barked. Chloe froze mid-step, her latte slipping from her hand and shattering on the marble floor. She looked toward Gabriel's office, her eyes wide with a silent, desperate plea for him to save her. He didn't blink. He just watched the timer. 0 hours, 4 minutes, 12 seconds. 2 agents, led by a man with a sharp jaw and silver hair named Special Agent Vance, kicked open Gabriel's door. "Gabriel Pendleton, stand up and step away from the device," Vance commanded, his hand resting hovering over his holster. "We have a federal warrant for the seizure of all electronic records pertaining to Apex Holdings and Grayson and Cole client escrow accounts." "I won't move," Gabriel said, his voice sounding like it was coming from a different room. "But you need to look at this screen, right now." "Step back, Pendleton!" Vance yelled, moving closer. Gabriel's phone, resting on the desk, gave a single, sharp, haptic pulse. A notification banner appeared. No text, just a string of 32 alphanumeric characters. X7Q9-P2 M4-R8 W1-K5 T6-J 3F8-N9 C2-V4 L1 00:01:45. "Agent Vance," Gabriel said, his voice suddenly regaining its bass. "You were tipped off. You think you're here to arrest a rogue analyst who stole $40 million. But if you let that timer hit 0, the real criminals, the men who built this firm on the blood of their clients, walk free. I am the only one holding the keys to the kingdom." "Hands up," Vance shouted, but he paused, his eyes flicking to the red numbers counting down. "I'm inputting the decryption code," Gabriel said, his fingers hovering over the keys. "If you tackle me, the evidence dies. If you let me finish, I give you Adrian Cole and David Harrison on a silver platter." Vance hesitated for a heartbeat, the longest heartbeat of Gabriel's life. He nodded once, sharply. "Do it! Fast!" Gabriel hammered the keys. He felt a strange sense of absolution with every stroke. X7Q9. He was typing away his career, his reputation, and his old life. He was destroying the world he had worked so hard to belong to. 00:00:05. He slammed the enter key. The screen went black for a terrifying second, then exploded into a cascade of green text. Decryption complete. Data extracted. A massive directory opened. It wasn't just the IP logs Maya had promised. It was a digital treasure trove. There were recorded VoIP calls of Adrian Cole discussing the Pendleton sacrifice. There were scans of the predatory loan used to blackmail Chloe. There was the full, untangled web of the Apex shell companies. Vance leaned over the desk, his eyes widening as he scrolled through the folders. "My God," he whispered, "you've got the whole board of directors in here." Outside the glass, the arrests began in earnest. Adrian Cole was led out of his office in handcuffs, his face a mask of purple aristocratic rage. He looked at Gabriel through the glass, his mouth moving in silent, vitriolic curses. Chloe was being read her rights by a female agent, her blonde hair matted with tears, looking smaller and more broken than Gabriel thought possible. 3 hours later, Gabriel walked out of the skyscraper and onto the sun-drenched sidewalk of the financial district. He was a free man, legally. The SEC had granted him full immunity in exchange for the Eclipse files. They knew he was involved in the final transfer, but with the evidence of the firm's blackmail and framing attempt, he was viewed as a whistleblower who acted under duress. But as he stood on the corner of State Street, Gabriel realized he was a ghost. His bank accounts were frozen or emptied by Maya. The deed to his home had been transferred to her name and sold to a holding company 3 days ago. His phone was a brick. He reached into his pocket and found a small, handwritten note Maya must have slipped into his briefcase weeks ago, knowing this day would come. You traded a kingdom for a night in the dirt, Gabriel. I just made sure the price was fair. Don't look for us. Our son will know his father was a man who learned the value of loyalty only after he lost everything. Goodbye." Gabriel looked up at the towering glass buildings. He had no job, no family, and no future. He was a man who had survived a shipwreck, only to realize the island he landed on was empty. He turned his collar up against the brisk Boston wind and vanished into the crowd, finally realizing that Maya hadn't just cleared his name, she had erased him entirely. What an absolutely chilling end to a story of ultimate betrayal. Maya didn't just get even, she redefined the game. She stripped Gabriel of his pride, his career, and his child, all while ensuring the real villains went to prison and she walked away with the spoils. It's a masterclass in strategy and a haunting reminder that the person who knows you best is the one who can destroy you most completely. Did Maya go too far by taking the money and disappearing? Or did Gabriel deserve every bit of this scorched earth finale? If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, make sure to smash that like button. This is the kind of drama that proves truth, or at least a well-written story, is stranger than fiction. Share this with your friends to see whose side they're on, Team Maya or Team Gabriel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss our next deep dive into betrayal and high-stakes twists. Let us know in the comments what you would have done with that USB drive. See you in the next story.